I just want to focus on the North London derby, people. I want to talk about Tottenham away because I'm nervous about it, because it's a really big game. We're in the middle of a title race. There are 4 games to go, and City have to win all their games to be champions. And if they slip up, then Arsenal can win all their games and be champions too. That's all I'm thinking about. But transfer news and reports keep coming through. And you can't ignore them. You can't, because when we signed Declan Rice and Gabby Jesus, which were massive signings at the time, still are, these reports and rumours and conversation around these players started months before we actually signed them. So you can't ignore what's happening now. But it just feels like, really? Is this where our attention is? But we've got to cover it all. So we're going to cover it all in this video. The latest news, some of the debate and conversation in the Twitter world of Arsenal. And of course talk a little bit about how tactically the North London derby gets really, really interesting. But we're going to start with the man himself, David Ornstein, because when he speaks, you listen. He is Mr. Arsenal transfers, and he covers all clubs, but he's the guy you listen to when he has an update. And in a Q&A on The Athletic, he was asked about Elise and he was asked about Isak, and he gave a really interesting answer. You can pause and read it if you want, but I think the thing that's really interesting is where he says that we've talked loads about a central striker, but as John Cross in the Daily Mirror first reported, the impact of Havertz up top may influence Arsenal's decision, especially if Jesus also stays at the club. Midfield is a key area of focus. Okay, let's digest this one for a sec. We're going to go through some more stuff he said in this answer in a little bit, but let's just start with the idea that Havertz doing well up front may be influencing Arsenal. Now, before you all call me a Havertz hater, I'm not a Havertz hater, okay? I'm trying to understand what Kai Havertz is bringing to this Arsenal team more and more, and I've given credit for the things I've seen that he does really well. I think his off-the-ball movement, for example, he does brilliantly. I actually talked about that in my latest upload when I was discussing it on Forever Arsenal. But I forget the Havertz conversation. I find it concerning that if you're going into 2024, and it's not just 2024 because this was talked about before, and there were links to Ivan Toney, there were rumours that Arsenal was still looking to try and do that deal because they wanted a more focal point striker, and then we'd be linked to Gyökeres and others, and we'd heard for pretty much all season, this is going back to the end of last summer, that the next big thing was going to be looking for a striker, was looking for that 30 goal a season player. If that was the plan, and this is how you've kind of seen Arsenal's progression, is a few months of good Havertz form, not amazing Havertz form, but good Havertz form from a player that you actually signed to originally be a midfielder, and you've actually still played in midfield quite a few times recently. Is that enough to change your mind completely as to what you do this summer? That doesn't sit right with me. And look, I'm not saying it doesn't have its benefits. More money goes on a really elite midfielder and a really elite wide player, but Havertz's form right now is good, and he's done a good job, don't get me wrong, and I've given the credit, but it's not enough for me to feel like, yeah, whatever your plans were this summer, you can throw them away and start fresh because that position is solved. That is what would concern me a little bit. That's all I'll say on that. But I appreciate he's doing well, Havertz, and I appreciate that things change, circumstances change, and Arsenal need to think about it. And that might be what it is. They might also be keeping their cards close to their chest because, you know, negotiation power and all that. But he goes on to say a few more interesting things, David Ornstein, where he says that essentially if Rice is going to be a 6 moving forward, then he assumes that they recruit a number 8, and if he's going to be a number 8 going forward, they would get a number 6. You've been watching my videos, David, thank you very much. He then goes on to say that departures in both positions will play a part in what happens, of course, and that he's sure the long-term conversation around depth in wide positions will continue. If Arsenal do not sign a wide player this summer, pack it up. I cannot watch Bukayo Saka play another 55 games and limp off 20 of them. Not his fault. I'm not contributing to the social media banter side of things. I'm just saying the poor guy gets kicked all the time and he needs rest. So I can maybe stomach the whole we don't want a striker thing because Havertz doing well and Trossard, but please get at least another wide player for that front line. That's all I'll say. He's then asked another really good question from Joel on the Q&A for The Athletic, and he's asked about Jorginho's contract extension, because he makes a great point here, Joel. Jorginho, I mean, I keep thinking, yeah, well, if we keep him another year, but keep him, we can't actually just keep him, we've got to sign him on. We almost have to re-sign him for another season. And that has been very, very quiet. David Ornstein says that he'd expect one of them to leave between Partey and Jorginho. Jorginho obviously has to decide what he wants to do, but Partey could raise more money. At the same time, he's arguably more important when fit, and that is going to be a really interesting decision from Arsenal's perspective, you command more money for Partey, don't command any for Jorginho, but Jorginho is more fit and reliable and a bit more experienced. Partey is a better player, but who's to say next season he's not completely unavailable like this season? So that's going to be a really interesting one. I'd almost lean towards keeping both and signing a natural number 8 and just having extra depth just to be extra sure, but I just don't see Arsenal seeing that as an option. So what happens in the 6th area will be interesting. Let me know in the comment section below what you would do between Partey and Jorginho. But it becomes interesting because we've been linked to a player who plays as a 6 and an 8, and that is Bruno Guimaraes. And Fabrizio Romano came in with this update. It's an exclusive saying that from the last week of May to the beginning of the last week of June, which seems like the 23rd, 24th of June or something, there will be a £100 million release clause valid for that time only, 1 month only, for clubs to drop £100 million at Newcastle's door and walk away Bruno Guimaraes. No one is paying it. Okay, no one is paying that. So I kind of feel like fair play for the exclusive Fabrizio, but I actually don't think that's going to change anything. I think clubs will go, cool, whatever, like we'll negotiate with you after June, because like no one, he's not worth that. And if they do, then wow, they really, really want him. He's a good player, Guimaraes. I've had questions about his attitude and stuff. In fact, I talked about that in last week's video. But I'm just not sure that... I'm not sure. I know he's not a £100 million player. When we signed Declan Rice for 105, I was like, yeah, worth it. Because I really, truly believed he was a difference maker. I don't feel that way about Bruno Guimaraes. So I ultimately think they'll just go into negotiations in July, because Newcastle are in a position where they may have to negotiate. We've talked about this many times on this channel. Their financial situation means they may have to just agree a deal at 65, 70 million, something that Arsenal and other clubs may be willing to do. But if you're willing to do that for Guimaraes, why not go get Frenkie de Jong? Because latest reports say that he is a candidate to leave Barcelona, in fact one of the main candidates to leave. And here is a player who plays as a 6, who plays as an 8. And when I remember what Arteta did with Rice and Jorginho against Liverpool at home, we wanted Rice to actually sit as a 6 and anchor in front of that back four, put Jorginho in the 8. I'm thinking, De Jong can do that. You can sign a midfielder who allows you to just flip the tactics between two players. You're not constantly changing the 11, you're just tweaking the use of their roles in game. So, against Rodri, Man City, you want Rice to press up the pitch. In games where you want to have more possession, you have De Jong as the 6 to get on the ball and play. And then when you actually just need a little bit more cover to protect that back four, Rice can 6 and De Jong can go be a playmaker. I feel like he is the perfect midfielder actually for what Arsenal need, especially if you can keep a Partey and a Jorginho in the squad. They could complement each other nicely. So I'd really be looking at a Frenkie de Jong over a Bruno Guimaraes, but not everyone is feeling that well. I don't know, a lot of people like De Jong, but there's no links at the moment. So I think the reason people aren't really talking about it too much is because we haven't really been linked with De Jong, and no one's actually saying we're going to do that. It's just something I'm trying to manifest myself. Let's talk about Marcus Rashford though, because this update tells us that United are willing to sell Rashford for the right price, and it's caused a lot of debate, with Robbie asking why Arsenal fans all love Rashford, FK saying that he's not sure where all the Rashford talk has come from, but he wouldn't go anywhere near him, used to like him a lot, but he's on astronomical wages. Bav says if Arteta could save Havertz, imagine what he could do with Rashford. And Alex from Different Knock saying if this is anything below 70 million, you do it. Honestly, I think there's our superstar. If we want to hit pause, if you want to read more of those tweets and details, go subscribe to all their channels. Of course, FK is at Latte Firm and Alex is at The Different Knock. But people, Rashford is a fascinating conversation, and I'm going to sit on the fence about it. I might, if there are genuine links and reports saying that we're interested in this deal, I'll do a breakdown and my thoughts on why we should or shouldn't go for him. But in a sentence, it's this: if we can pinpoint the reason for his struggles and we like the reason why he's had those struggles, then you sign him, because I don't think talent's a problem. But if he's having purple patches, and we talked about his purple patches, I did a whole video on this channel before I was just covering Arsenal about how he goes in and out of form. If his purple patches are down to the environment at Man United and, I don't know, the odd off-field issue that you can forgive and understand, and maybe the manager not using him right or whatever, and injuries, then I think you go, yeah, okay, cool, we can nurture that, or we can improve him. But if actually the patchy form and the lack of consistency, of which it has been really sporadic, then actually, if those reasons are more attitude, concentration, and whatever, then Arsenal move beyond that, and actually we need players that they need to be more reliable. If we're going to spend a lot of money on an attacker, there's got to be a degree of reliability. Talent's not a question with Rashford. I don't believe it is anyway. But consistency certainly is. So again, pinpoint what that reason is for the lack of consistency. And if Arsenal and Arteta find that out, they like the reasons, I think it's a deal that might be worth doing. But like I said, we could talk about him in more detail in a future video. We'll see if actual links and reports come up. I just thought it was an interesting debate doing the rounds on Twitter. And finally, I just want to talk about the North London derby very quickly, because that is the big game of the weekend. And of course, Leandro Trossard, with these impressive stats I covered on AFTV, would suggest that he deserves to start this game. He scored the opener against Wolves, the opener against Chelsea, the equaliser against Bayern Munich. He got into the best goal scoring position against Villa, although unfortunately missed, and his numbers look really good with 0.77 goals and assists per 90 and only 21 starts. He's done really well for Arsenal this season, but could Arteta look elsewhere? Because I believe the way Tottenham get their wing backs high up the pitch in inverted positions, it could drag Saka and our other winger, who I actually think will be Jesus in this game, it could drag them really in field. And actually we want to not be drawn into those areas where we're deep in our own penalty area and we don't quite know how to defend their wing backs. I think we want to press them higher up the pitch and try create transition moments, as we did so well in the North London derby at home last year, 2023, earlier this season. So that, I think, is the more likely game plan for Arteta, and Jesus, I think, fits it a little bit more than Trossard, which is unfair on Trossard. But as you saw with that 11 there, I've gone for what I think Arteta would go with, which is Havertz up top and Jesus on the left. Personally, this is my 11. I'd go for Trossard as the false 9, because he's so clutch. I'd still get him in this team. Havertz, yes, he's 6'4". I actually don't see him bullying Romero and Van de Ven. I see a Trossard or a Jesus doing that more, and I'd rather see them interchange with their quality in tight spaces, causing those two centre-backs real problems, because they can be rash, though I rate Van de Ven very highly. So that is how I'd line up for the North London derby. But let me know all your thoughts in the comment section below. A, what do you think of these transfer rumours? Are we going for a 6? Are we going for an 8? What do you make of the latest on the striker search? Marcus Rashford, wouldn't you go anywhere near him? And Gabby, Jesus, Trossard, Havertz, what would be your front three for the North London derby? And let me know your score predictions in the comment section below as well. And I just want to say a really big thank you for watching this video. If you did enjoy it, actually hit the links right here to watch more content like this, including my Football First podcast, which drops every Monday to Friday at 6 AM. And I know it's annoying, I am really sorry to have to ask, but if you want to show support to the channel, hitting the like and subscribe buttons help promote the content much more than you could possibly know. Thanks again.